Welcome to Bistory Media. I will take you through the last 24 hours of General Yakubu Gowon as Nigeria's head of state and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. I will look at how the 1975 coup unfolded in Nigeria and what happened in Kampala, the capital of Uganda, where General Yakubu Gowon was attending OAU summit. We begin in Kampala. By time zone, Kampala, the capital of Uganda, is 2 hours ahead of Lagos, Nigeria. In other words, 6:00 hours, that is 6 a.m. in Lagos on July 29, 1975, was actually 8:00 hours or 8 a.m. in Kampala. At about 4:00 hours, that is 4 a.m. Lagos time, when conspirators in Dodan barracks were putting final touches to the speech to be delivered by Colonel Joseph Namvan Garba at dawn, it was already 6:00 hours in Kampala. General Yakubu Gowon, who was focusing on his agenda for the day, was completely unaware of what was about to happen. He was unaware that his emissary to Lagos, Lieutenant Colonel William Welby, had been detained and his executive aircraft seized the day before. Throughout the crucial hours of July 28, as plotters put finishing touches to their plans and mobilized openly, no one made it a duty to contact General Gowon. It was as if he had been living and ruling on borrowed times. At the Nile Hotel in Kampala, getting up early on that second day of the OAU conference, General Yakubu Gowon, a former chairman of the organization, prepared himself for the usual diplomatic push and pull of the summit. During the opening formalities the day before, Yakubu Gowon was a keynote speaker. His speech, entitled "The Unity of Africa," delivered on behalf of Nigeria, was an inspiring one by all standards. On his way to the Nile Mansion Conference Hall, General Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire delayed him for about an hour. They were discussing the situation in Angola. Thereafter, Gowon entered the conference hall. At this time, Mr. Mbowu of UNESCO was delivering his own speech. Ugandan President Idi Amin then called Gowon to the high table and gave him a note, which contained the news that he had been deposed in the coup. Gowon reportedly read the note and, in response to an inquiry from Amin, said the situation would become clear as the day wore on. Apparently, this initial note did not specify the identity of the officer who announced the coup in Lagos. Privately, Gowon was still thinking at this time that Colonel Joseph Namvan Garba was on his side and that no coup would succeed without fierce resistance from the elite brigade of guards. But he was wrong. Gowon returned to his seat next to Alhaji Usman Farouk and quietly told the governor in Hausa, "Abinda muka jin tsoro, ya faru a gida." That means what we have been afraid of at home has happened. He then consoled Farouk, who was shattered by the news, saying, "I have a clear conscience. There is nothing to worry about." According to former Commonwealth Secretary General Emeka Anyako, as reported by his biographer Phyllis Johnson, the presidential head wearing agbada entered the conference center via a side door, made his way to the general and whispered some information into his ears. It was at that point that Gowon got up, acknowledged the chairman Idi Amin of Uganda, and departed from the conference room straight for his hotel room. It was apparent at this time that the officer who announced his removal from power was none other than Colonel J.N. Garba himself. Garba was the commander of the Brigade of Guards who repeated his pledge of loyalty just before Gowon left the country. Clearly, things were a lot more complicated than he had thought. According to sources in the civil service of that era, when Yakubu Gowon got back to his room, he was contemplative and inquisitive, but dignified. Over the course of the day, he wanted every little piece of information from and about Nigeria brought to his attention. One of those that were present says he asked if the announcement from Lagos was the only announcement from Nigeria. What about Kaduna? What about Ibadan? What about Jos? But the answers to all of these questions was the same. No counter-announcement was heard from any of the headquarters of the Army's Infantry Division at that time. There was no news of fighting or resistance to the coup. Let us return briefly to Lagos. Radio signals coming to the plotters in Lagos from various divisional headquarters in the country had all said the same thing. Nighttime operations had been accomplished without resistance, and troops in support of the coup were deployed at critical points. From the 1st Division headquarters in Kaduna, a 2nd Division headquarters in Ibadan, the 3rd Division headquarters in Jos, all were quiet. There was no sign of opposition to the coup. The report from Kano was also good. The brigade commander, Colonel Ejiga, had successfully moved into position and kept a large number of senior officers, including Deputy Chief of Staff, Supreme Headquarters Major General Hassan Katsina, under isolation and close surveillance. They could neither shoot nor move, nor could they communicate with anyone else who could shoot or move. Confirmation was also obtained from brigade commanders at critical locations outside Lagos that had been privy to the coup. For instance, Colonel, later Major General George Enya, commander of the 5th Infantry Brigade, Onitsha, was a very close friend of Colonel, later Major General J.N. Garba. His major task was to block any east-west deployments of hostile troops across the Niger Bridge against the coup in Lagos in the event of all-out fighting. In the meantime, although all airports were closed, a commercial aircraft carrying Brigadier Muritala Muhammad back from London was allowed to land at the Kano International Airport. Confident that the coup had succeeded nationwide and that no negative reaction was forthcoming from the Guards Brigade, Colonels Garba and Ochefu released Lieutenant Colonel William Welby from Todan Barracks. But guys, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, kindly take a moment to look for the subscribe button and click on it. It will go a long way to help us, and subscription is free. Now, let us return to the next phase of the coup. The next phase of the coup was to galvanize support and elect Gowon's successor. To do this, the Saints signaled declaring their intention to summon what can best be described as a military convention in Lagos, at which the new leadership, supposedly excluding they themselves who plotted the coup, would presumably be chosen. At about 9:00 hours, that is 9 a.m., therefore, an aircraft left Lagos to bring senior officers, including service chiefs, to Lagos. The aircraft hopped from airport to airport, gathering officers all over the country. Meanwhile, Colonel Garba continued to listen to himself on radio repeatedly and drove around Lagos inspecting points of deployment. Lieutenant Colonel Ibrahim Babangida had deployed additional armored vehicles from Ikeja to Dodan Barracks in expectation of the arrival of senior officers, and Radio Nigeria was just across the road. Meanwhile, then Brigadier Olusegun Obasanjo had lost his appetite. According to him, unquote, I sent for newspapers and kept myself busy reading every print, including small advertisements, end of quote. Even with that, Obasanjo kept checking with MD Yusuf about the security situation in the country and was repeatedly reassured that the nationwide deployment of soldiers overnight had been peaceful. At 15:00 hours, that is 3 p.m., Colonel Abdullahi Muhammad and Lieutenant Colonel Shehu Musa Yaradua, two of the original 3 Musketeers of July 1975, the third being Colonel Ibrahim Taiwo, which we have covered in the video displayed here, walked into Obasanjo's house. They invited him for the planned meeting of senior officers scheduled for 4 p.m., that is 4:00 hours at Dodan Barracks. But it took some time to get his own views about the situation in the country. Nevertheless, some minutes to the 16:00 hours, Obasanjo, wearing mufti, drove himself unarmed in his private vehicle to Dodan Barracks. There, the atmosphere was jovial, cordial and tension-free. But the meeting could not start till about 5 p.m. According to Colonel Joseph Namvan Garba, quote, it was not until about 5 in the afternoon that a large number of them finally assembled in Dodan Barracks to hear what we, who came to be known as the junta, had to say. We kept everyone waiting in the large council chamber, after plucking out our proposed ruling triumvirate of Murtala Muhammad, Olusegun Obasanjo, and T.Y. Danjuma to inform them of their new jobs. In the coffee room at Dodon Barracks, where all the officers had assembled, the identities of the new leaders were jointly announced by Colonel J.N. Garba, the main spokesperson, Colonel Abdullahi Muhammad, and Lieutenant Colonel Sheikh Musa Yaradua. The officers explained that although Brigadier Murtala Muhammad was militarily junior to Brigadier Olusegun Obasanjo, real politics made it necessary to offer the position of head of state to Muhammad. Obasanjo quickly accepted to serve under his junior Murtala Muhammad as long as his new job as Chief of Staff Supreme Headquarters carried real power and responsibilities. Danjuma was offered the position of Chief of Staff Army, which he later clarified was now to be called Chief of Army Staff, an important distinction. To further demonstrate that Gowon was operating alone all along, his Chief Security Officer M.T. Yusuf was nominated as a new Inspector General of Police. Though Brigadier Murtala Muhammad opposed this nomination, he was overwhelmed by others. The new regime was gradually being set up. When all arrangements were completed and the new head of state announced, the now ex-service chiefs and pro-Gowon senior officers present were not in a position to do anything. They were unarmed, marooned inside Dodon Barracks, surrounded by Babangida's armored vehicles and J.N. Garba's infantry, all heavily armed. They accepted the situation as a fait accompli and left quietly. In the meantime, the new triumvirate of Murtala Muhammad, Olusegun Obasanjo, and T.Y. Danjuma made arrangement to meet with Coup plotters later that evening at about 22:00 hours, that is 10 p.m. The meeting, which was to conclude arrangements on the composition of the new regime, was held at Brigadier Murtala Muhammad's house. But I will come back to this meeting shortly. Let us briefly return to Kampala. Back in Kampala, after departing from the conference hall, Gowon spent the rest of the day quietly. Cameroon's President Amadou Ahidjo had sought his audience to commensurate and get an update on the situation. Ahidjo, who was reportedly shattered by the development, was particularly astonished by Garba's involvement. Other African leaders like General Jafar Nimeri of Sudan, Idi Amin of Uganda, and Michael Andom of Ethiopia also called on him to express support. There is no record, however, that any of them offered specific military assistance to beat back the coup. Thereafter, Gowon retired to play the game of squash at the university. But while there, his mind was always on the situation in Nigeria. Shortly after the Dodon Barracks military convention, the BBC broadcasted from Lagos that Brigadier Murtala Rufai Muhammad, a nomenclature mistake that was corrected the next day, had been chosen to lead the new regime. By nightfall in Kampala, therefore, Gowon was fully aware that Murtala Muhammad and Joseph Garba were definitely involved. But who were the others, he wondered. When words came that Brigadier T.Y. Danjuma, one of those he had counted on for support, had been appointed Chief of the Army in a new dispensation, Gowon was crushed. But most of the shock would come when the full list of members of the Supreme Military Council and the new state governors was released the next day. Let us return to Brigadier Murtala Muhammad's house in Nigeria, where the list was being fine-tuned. Later that night, at about 22:00 hours Lagos local time, midnight in Kampala, there was a crucial meeting at the house of Brigadier Murtala Muhammad at 2nd Avenue in Ikoyi, Lagos. The coup plotters were mainly represented by their inner circle, comprising Sheikh Musa Yaradua, Joseph Namban Garba, Abdullahi Muhammad, Muhammad Buhari, and Ibrahim Taiwo, among others, had said they did not want to play any role in a new government. However, Obasanjo opposed a complete exclusion of the plotters from government, fearing a backlash much later, and Obasanjo's position was not resisted further. They gladly agreed to take political appointments in recognition of their hard work. Joseph Namvan Garba was given a political position as Federal Commissioner for Transport. Lieutenant Colonel Shehu Musa Yar'Adua was initially appointed Governor of Rivers State and then moved to Foreign Ministry. Buhari, Taiwo, Abdullahi Muhammad backed state governorships. Several former brigade commanders became governors. However, Garba went back to reject his appointment once again and was replaced as Transport Commissioner by Shehu Musa Yar'Adua. Now, let us return again to Kampala, where Gowon was still monitoring the situation from. When the list of those who constitute the new regime was released the next day, Gowon realized the extent of the conspiracy. He knew at this point that there was no need to fight back. He also wanted, he said, to make sure that those who might be considering resisting the new regime should not go down that path. For him, the path of resistance at this point was fraught with dangers of bloodshed. Wearing a white traditional Nigerian agbada and cap to match, he called an international press conference. He opened the conference with a remark from a section of William Shakespeare's As You Like It, saying, "All the world is a stage, and all the men and women made players. They have their exits and their entrances." Thereafter, Gowon delivered a prepared speech, unquote. "From all indications, a new government has been established in Nigeria. I wish to state that I on my part have also accepted the change and pledged my full loyalty to my nation, my country, and the new government. Therefore, in the overall interest of the nation and our beloved country, I appeal to all concerned to cooperate fully with the new government and ensure the preservation of peace, unity, and stability of our dear motherland. As a Nigerian, I am prepared to serve my country in any capacity which my country may consider appropriate. I am a professional soldier and I can do any duty that I am called upon to do. May I take this opportunity to thank all the people of Nigeria and friends of Nigeria for the support and cooperation that you all gave me during my tenure of office, and I call upon all of you to give the new government of our nation the same support and cooperation in the interest of our beloved country. Long live our united, happy, and prosperous Nigeria. Long live the Organization of African Unity. May God bless you all." That is how Gowon spent his last 24 hours as Nigeria's military head of state. Gowon subsequently went into exile in the United Kingdom, where he acquired a PhD in political science as a student at the University of Warwick. Want to watch more videos like this? Subscribe to Bistory Media and press the bell icon next to it. We'll bring you more videos on the forgotten history of Nigeria and important events around the African continent, the power, and things the world should know about Africa. Thanks for watching, and until my next video, please stay tuned and cheers.